Welcome. Thanks for joining me for this chair yoga session. My hope is this will be useful for a variety of people. Someone who, because of injuries or physical limitations, might only be able to be seated or maybe feeling safer doing yogic stuff seated versus on their feet. Also, for people who just have to spend a lot of time sitting at their job, maybe when you're traveling, and so on. And so you could use this whole thing or portions of it, perhaps, that you remember feel great to your system. So I hope you get some fun tools. Again, thanks for being here. First of all, we need to create a seat that works for us. I've chosen kind of a soft but firm chair. You could use a dining room chair, but if it's not upholstered, I would pick like a blanket or something to put underneath because we want to be seated at the front edge of the chair on our sits bones. Those two bony guys that you feel if you are on a hard surface and you kind of move side to side, you'll feel that. That's our foundation for our yoga practice today. When we're in any yoga practice, a huge part of our foundation is the feet, and that's true here seated as well. If, for example, you don't have a chair that is low enough for you to have your thigh bones straight ahead, and you can kind of feel the edge cutting into your underside of your leg, you might take a firm pillow, for example, and place the feet upon it to create that better foundation. I've also got handy a scarf, which is going to be available to us as sort of a stretching yogic strap. So you don't have to have official strap. It's just something that is taut enough and gives you a little bit of length. And then lastly, I've got a yoga block. Now, I know not everybody owns one of these. You could, again, find something to replace it that would give you a little bit of firmness to resist. Again, a sort of firmish or thickish pillow might provide that same ability. Because one of the great challenges of being seated is trying to ignite some of the same intelligence in our body that we have when we're standing, although people still find it hard to find it and wake it up. And so yoga is a great gift that way. But I'm always going, how do we wake up these muscles, this kinetic chain that allows us to remember and hold fully upright, decompressed in our spine, plenty of space for the breath apparatus to do what it's supposed to do versus being compressed. And so that's going to be a big part of our focus today. And we'll have some great ways to wake up muscles that are sleepy. If you find that you're like, I don't know what she's talking about, I can't feel that, whenever possible, take your touch, your hand there, or just keep talking to that part of the body. And sometimes after even one or two tries, you'll feel ignition that maybe you haven't. So first of all, we're going to place our feet parallel, and you want them to be about hip width apart. So your knees would be straight forward from your hip bones, not your outer flesh of your hips. And look down at your feet. I know you can't see mine, but trust I'm doing what I'm telling you. Look down at your feet. Place your big toes and ball of the big toe straight forward and anchored. And then see if you can spread your other toes. If you're flexible enough to fold downward and touch your feet, you could even use your fingers to pull apart the toes and then see if you can hold them that way. I think of them as like a little sticky tree frog feet. And so we want to practice anchoring evenly through the kind of major 4 points of the foot, inner and outer at the kind of ball under the big toe and pinky toe, and then inner and outer through the heel. If you notice, wow, it's really hard for me to keep my legs parallel, such as I have, that is a great indication that we need to develop strength on that inner thigh area and to reduce some of the tension on the outer. And that was a real challenge for me that I've been working on for years. And one of my great tools for creating balance in those inner and outer partnering muscle groups was to work with squeezing a block. Now, I usually did it standing, but we can do the same thing seated. So I'm going to ask you to first just join me in finding this alignment, finding that little inner thigh squeeze, and we're going to add something else. I want you to just squeeze the glutes. And it might already be happening because if you're squeezing the thighs towards that object, but very intentionally fire them up. And I can feel, and you maybe even be able to see, that I rise and settle with the ignition of those glutes. Excellent. We're going to find the rest of our alignment as we head up. So you feel those sits bones, again, feet, thighs, glutes, sits bones. And now I want you to rise up through the crown of the head. When we ask people to do this, sometimes people reach through the chin. We don't want to do that. We actually want to reach up through the kind of back of the top of the head, such that the chin comes a little bit down and back. Might make you feel like you have a soft kind of double chin happening. All right. And next, we're going to add some inward attention. So if you're able to close your eyes, tune inward and send your gaze as if you're looking behind the center of the forehead, kind of above the bridge of the nose and eyebrows. This helps create a state of more introversion for the brain, affirming that we're tuning into our body in this moment and this breath. You could also add the tip of the tongue lightly on the roof of the mouth behind the front teeth, further helping us state, I am here, I am present. While doing that, try to relax and soften the rest of the face, the jaw, create space between the molars at the back. Maybe find a soft smile. It doesn't have to be big such that other people would see it, but you feel a gentle kind of warming and spreading of the face muscles. Last, I'm going to invite you to add Ujjayi, great sounding breath. And if this is new to you, it can be a challenge. I did do a tutorial on it you could check out, but try it with me for even a second and you can always let it drop. Contract your throat just a little bit. And so as the breath is passing through that valve that you've created, the breath will make kind of a sound, but with the mouth closed. I think of it as sound of wind in the trees or ocean waves. This is just one more tool to stay connected to what you're doing in your body and sensation focused. All right. We're going to tune into the breath and spend just a few rounds elongating and deepening the breath before we come into any body movements. While we're doing that, if you'd like, you could place your palms open, just resting on the thighs, or you could create a mudra, a hand position as we call it, by connecting index finger and thumb together and activating the other three fingers, kind of making a single connection of them. I'm not sure how well you can see that. Beautiful. Broadening through the heart space as you root through the sits bones, rise through the crown, looking inward, light connection with the tongue, maybe Ujjayi. And let's find the passage of 3 slow breaths. Asking of the inhale, is there more? Watching for those last subtle whispers of breath. And then you might notice almost a pause as the breath turns the other direction. Exhaling. Again, asking, is there more? Be patient. Let's do 2 more in that way. You might think about trying to lengthen the breath towards about 5 or 6 seconds each for the inhale and exhale. Don't worry if they're not that long. Notice if the mind wanders, tune back into your breath, watching and listening. Where do you feel it touching your body? Nice. Please take a moment just to acknowledge yourself for taking this time to tune in. And from this connected place, as you scan the body, some of us might notice, I'm noticing, wow, my inner thigh area is doing a lot of work. You might even have a little quivering happening if, in fact, this is a thing that you're needing to balance out in your body. So I'm going to take the block out and I'm just going to give myself a chance to kind of shake it out You can take those legs wide, kind of move them around. This kind of activation, like jumping, etc., is really good for moving our lymph, which only usually happens when we're walking and ambulating. So this is a nice way to jumpstart that system that's so important to our health. When you're complete with that, let's set the feet down again, but this time wide. And I'm going to ask you to activate those glutes again. Keep your breath going, slow, deep, and wide. And so you're just squeezing the glutes, which creates a little rise and releasing. Again, if you're feeling the hardness of the chair beneath you, you definitely want to add a little layer of padding. There's really important connection points at those sits bones that you don't want to irritate. All right, and then I'm going to bring them back in, and we're going to come into, I hope, what you will enjoy as a wonderful hip stretch. And I'll try and offer kind of versions of it if this doesn't work for you. But staying upright, see if you can bring your right knee up towards your chest. And I'm doing this with shoulder heads activated down and a nice long spine versus curled over. If you can't get your leg high enough to sit upright, you could take your strap and hook it around below the kneecap. Again, shoulder heads anchored down, broad chest, and come up. And this would allow you to go as low as you need to go. Once you've got that, you might just hold there if that's your best kind of ability. If you can reach your foot, feel free to bring it across onto that left thigh. Again, take all the time you need to, breathe. It's a good effort just doing that. And then we're going to play here. So one option is just to wag that knee, kind of lift and sink. A nice breath. Another option is to begin to hinge at the hips and fold towards the leg. I'm always hesitant to describe this because I'm worried that people are going to drop their head folding towards the leg. I want my kind of rib cage to fold towards the leg, maintaining upright through the face and head. Otherwise, the pressure tends to go to the low back, and what I'm wanting is to feel a stretch here in this hip. Depending on what's going on in your body, if you've got hip, knee replacements, etc., and you're concerned about any of that, or you're experiencing joint discomfort, then I would leave this out, and you could always talk to whatever practitioner is your guide in your body. But sending breath intentionally down into the hips here can be very useful. Again, if that is not working for you, you might just be holding here. Good, and we will switch. Again, bringing the other knee up towards the chest. Perhaps clasping that foot to cross over. Another option, by the way, if that's difficult, is extending your other leg and crossing the foot lower down. So this would be another alternate way to get this stretch. You know, we might spend an entire day of our lives without ever taking our hips, knees, and feet out of this sort of forward path of motion. And we're designed to be able to do this. So any little room that we can give it is wonderful. This is a great stretch if you're, at a desk a bunch and you're wishing you could get more mobility and more stretching. This is a pretty easy one to do in a small space. Giving plenty of room for the inhale. Always exhale, belly to spine for core support, folding as deeply as you can. And when you feel complete, again, come on up and release. And you can give it another hop. All right, we're going to take those legs wide again. Again, our body appreciates variety. And the first version you would do if, in fact, you are only able to be seated is that glute squeeze that we've talked about, and just applying a little pressure in your feet as if you were about to rise, as if I was about to get up. If you're able to get up, then press up and slowly return. Maybe you just come up a little bit. This is a wonderful opportunity to strengthen the butt and thighs, an area that is actually tight but really weak on most of us modern humans, and really important for our safety and stability as we age. It's these big muscle groups that help us stay upright, keep our balance, catch ourselves if we lose it on a piece of slippery ice or something like that. All right, we're going to do about 3 more. Breathing. You might exhale as you do your rise. Inhale as you descend and return. Get that full inhale. Exhaling again. If you're able to stand completely at the very top end of that stance, click those knees into straight so that you're really activating these quadriceps versus letting them stay a little bit relaxed. Let's do just a couple more. Deep breath attention. If you're safe in your balance and you want to challenge it a little bit, doing this with the eyes closed. One more. And release. Nice. We'll bring those legs back to our neutral, what we call mountain stance when we're standing, feet parallel, legs parallel, and so on. And again, if having those legs parallel continues to be a challenge area for you and you want to focus on it, having a block or something to squeeze between, super useful. All right, we're going to take our arms straight out. And then I'm going to invite you to fold your fingers in and kind of pinch down with the kind of body of the thumb, the tip of the thumb pointing upright. Now, just holding like this and breathing is quite energizing and quite good for mood. So if you're somebody who struggles, especially in the depths of winter, which is where we're at right now, this is a nice position to be in, again, either seated or standing. I'm going to ask you to just tune in and to continue to root and reach, sits bones to crown, and then heart out through those knuckles and thumb. As you breathe and you invite that deep inhale, I'm hoping you can feel activation and stretch through the intercostals and the rib cage. They are designed to move with breath. Notice if they're not and give them some love. Is there more? Let's do one more like that. Good. And then invitation to keep going with that or join me in a breath of fire, bellows breath gets named different things, but it's a rapid in and out through the nose. Now, if you've got high blood pressure, hypertension, if you've got eye issues, cataracts, etc., I would ask you to just stick with the steadiness and depth of breath. Otherwise, nice long inhale and then rapid in and out through the nose. You're using your abdomen to pump like a bellows. And then a long inhale, turn the palms open to the sky and slowly rise. Your comfort zone might be kind of out in a little bit of a V, maybe arms parallel, maybe palms coming together. Don't force it and take on neck tension. Exhaling, turn the palms out like you're saying stop and come slowly, slowly down all the way to the hips. Let the hands settle on the legs and just notice the effect of that breath on you. Nice. We're going to do essentially a chair version of cow-cat pose. Wonderful for, again, decompressing the spine, really working our internal organs, and just upping our kind of awakenedness, if you will. So hands on thighs, maybe out by the knees, whatever ends up being comfortable. I'm going to have you first come into your cat back. So it's a nice, deep, rounding back through the whole spine. Tailbone kind of ends up tucking. And then on the inhale, I want you to think about rising up again through the spine and then draw forward through the heart. Tailbone tilting back. To initiate our cat back, the one we started with, start with tucking the tailbone. So I'm going to squeeze my glutes, tuck my tailbone under, and then let that curve progress up the spine. Again, to initiate the next pose, our cow pose, I'm going to think about reaching straight up first. I'm elongating the spine, then drawing forward through the heart. And so you can do this at your pace and with any breath pairing you want, but normally we inhale into this arch pose, this cow pose. And we tuck the tailbone, we exhale into cat pose. Now, if you can add some extra vigor in your abdominal muscles as you round back, you're getting some really good core work. This is amazing to me every time that you don't have to do sit-ups to get strong through this part of the body. And in fact, unlike sit-ups, you don't take on neck tension. So when you are tuned into that, notice how it feels and elongate the breath. And the next time you are inhaling, coming upright. Good. There are a lot of ways to do spinal twists. What we know is they're really important for our health for a whole variety of reasons. So I'm going to offer a few different things, ask you to try them out. Always in a spinal twist, we want to stay upright. We never want to create the twist by hunching. Okay, so don't get greedy and go, oh, I got to get to the knee. She said to the knee. Okay, so start upright. And on your exhale, I actually want you to, again, engage those glutes a little bit like we've been doing. Think about this low belly and just start rotating to the right, but starting with the low spine. Good. Then you'll place your left hand on that outside of the knee. You might have your other hand just settled on the hip. An option is to inhale, give it room, exhale, rotate here. Or if you've got a chair with a back, you could take your hand back there, or you could have it behind your hips on the chair. These are all things that will give you a deeper rotation. Some of you might not be able to reach all the way to the knee. So again, you just have your hand up a little higher. All right, let's inhale, give it room. Exhale, again, think about those glutes, low belly, engagement rising up the spine, continuing into the upper back. Is there more? And let's do one more this direction. Inhaling, plenty of space. Exhaling, rotating, starting with the lower spine. Soft tongue, neck, and eyes. And inhaling, come back to center. Scan the body. What do you notice? Good. On our next exhale, we'll begin. Engage those glutes. Low spine rotates to the left. And I'm going to let my left hand just slide up to my hip. Right hand's going to come across to the outside of the leg. Again, if that's too far and you can't do that, amend it. As you continue your process of rooting and reaching on the inhale and exhaling, rotating, just notice where it's appropriate to deepen, maybe placing that back hand on the seat of the chair or the back of the chair. Resist the temptation to crank the neck to look behind you. We really want to just keep the head in alignment with the spine. Maybe at the very end on your last exhale, rotating to look behind you. It's a nice stretch. We just don't want to hold in that deepest position. And inhaling back to center. And I'm going to ask you to take your arms out in a goalpost, and we're just going to slowly go a little side to side. Not the biggest movement in the whole world. We're just sort of massaging all of that stuff that we worked. Nice. Then I'm going to ask you to join me in a side body stretch. We don't stretch this part of the body a lot. And often I think when people move quickly to go pick up a toothpaste cap and they get injured, it's because there's just so much tension and things kind of bind up. So you'll want to place one hand on the seat of the chair beside you. Root and rise. Take the other arm straight up and then just slowly play with moving to the side. So I've got my right arm up and I'm moving to the left, for example. I always like to rotate my face towards the floor because I find it creates less neck tension for me, but up to you. And then let's pair this with breath. So your inhale is that root and reach. Your exhale is still reaching, but sliding along the ceiling to the left as if trying to pick a ripe piece of fruit. And as you inhale, keep elongating as you come back. So we're not just moving sideways in space, we're thinking about that root and reach the whole time. Inhaling back to center, and we'll switch arms. So now I'm going to place my right hand on the seat of the chair. I'm going to root and reach through the left. I still want to be checking with my foundation, my feet, my knees, alignment, and so on. And exhaling, reaching along the sky to the right. Inhaling, returning upright. Don't rush the breath. The goal is not the next movement. The goal is the fullness of breath. Is there more? The miracle of breath, it can change pretty much everything in our biology. It can affect us so powerfully on every level. So even if we're not moving, just breathing fully. Let's do one more. And release. You might return hands to lap and just notice how you feel. Nice. We're going to come into a stretch that is wonderful, but finding the right amount of stretch for each of us is its own challenge. This is where you might want a scarf or a strap, and I'll show you sideways. So the classic version of the pose is that we reach behind, we interlace the fingers, and then we try to press the fists down towards the floor or the chair in this case. And this ideally helps the shoulder heads rotate back and down. If you're tight enough that you can't get those arms straight, that they're kind of stuck here, that's where I'd love for you to add something behind you that allows you to take your hands a little distance apart. It might be just a couple inches that makes the difference. It might be more like 6 or 10, and allows you to press those fists towards the floor or the chair, and then perhaps even raise them up off of that surface. And we can do this in a pulsing way. So I like to just relax a moment, take a nice big inhale, and exhaling, press into your pose. We actually call this yoga mudra. Inhaling, relax and release. Maybe you can come in a little closer on the strap or scarf. And again, maybe you discover now that you can do hands clasped and play with that. If you're comfortable here, we're going to add a little fold. And to do that, I'm going to take my knees wide. Nice supportive belly. Make sure you're on a surface you're not going to slide off of. Very important. And the option here is to add a forward fold. Now, you might enjoy doing a forward fold without these arms. So you could just release them to the knees and enjoy that. Otherwise, allowing the power of gravity to kind of open those arms even more. Again, if you're only getting them a couple inches off the hips, you might be actually better off taking the hands apart, broadening it on a strap that gives you more freedom. When you choose to come up, nice glute squeeze, spine straight up, and then relax. When working with the shoulders, it's really important to move slowly. It's the most versatile joint in our body, but it doesn't always feel that way because it hasn't been getting used, or we've got injury and we've got scar tissue. So again, if that is just too intense, even with the strap, you might start with just bringing the hands back and trying to rotate the shoulder heads back and down, finding your point of entry. And lastly, we are going to love up our neck a little bit. So I'm going to take my hands in a collar. I've just got my fingertips meeting at the back, and I'm providing a supportive base for me to gently let the head move around kind of the rim of that collar. And if it feels good, you might add a little pressure from one hand and then the other, a little tractioning. Good. And then with that supportive collar, inhale, reach the chin up. You're not really dropping your head back. You're reaching the chin up. I hope you might feel a little stretch through the neck. Good. And then releasing the hands, just allow your chin to drop to the chest. Draw some nice deep breath Feeling it, I hope, in that upper back. And you might just sort of wag your head gently left and right. On an inhale, return it straight up. And we're going to close our practice today just tuned in for a few final rounds of breath. Again, you might add an intentional mudra, palms upright with fingertip of the index finger and thumb touching, other fingers activated. There's also a hand position I love called the heart calming mudra. And it's palms open, left palm on top of right, just settled in there, and thumbs connected. And I've got the whole thing kind of up here by my diaphragm. Engage those glutes, find that root and reach, and then settle into it, letting the glutes go a little bit so you're just present and strong, but not super engaged or tight. Let's watch the passage of 3 breaths. Notice it rising up the spine, sort of like a well, gently filling, asking, is there more at the top? Witness the pause or gap, and then exhale the slow settling and releasing of the breath. We'll do that twice more. And last bit of closing ignition for our body. Go ahead and shake those hands out. Roll those ankles. Flex and point. Thank you so much for being here with me. I hope you had a great practice. I hope you feel different than when you came in. And I hope you remember a few things that you might want to bring into your daily life. Blessings. See you soon.